as a guide, our meetings last about an hour and a half. We go through everything like the avalanche bulletin, previous avalanche conditions, updates to the snowpack, overnight changes, those sorts of things. So we factor all of the things that had happened throughout the year, what happened overnight, and the forecast for the day, and then we actually make a run list. So before we even go out to ski anything, we put a color on all the runs. So like in an operation, we've got names for all the runs. So we actually put a color on it. So given these conditions, on the day, we put green means it's good to go for guiding. Red means no matter how good that run looks, it's off limits for the day. And then sometimes you put yellow. If there's like a characteristic that happens, it can be an okay thing. So maybe it's like as simple as, if the cornice had gone on this run, then today's an okay day to go across that. So it's yellow. If the cornice is still there, it's red. If the cornice is gone, then it's green, but it's yellow going out the door. And so what that paints is it eliminates that human bias where you're like looking through your ski tips and making that decision. Because the reality is, if you're going to look through your ski tips and then need to make a decision there, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have a pretty good feeling about skiing that thing. So the idea is it's like to try to manage our desires and our irrationality in the field, we come up with those like rules and those guidelines before going out the door. So the reality for us is the actual danger rating, it's the last thing that we do as guides is we kind of throw a danger rating on our, because it kind of just paints a picture for other people, but it doesn't really sum up how we make decisions. Like, how often have you guys heard when someone skied something rad, they were just like, we skied this because it was yellow today. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, what are the characteristics? What did you find? And so I really want to be super clear on how awesome, and I just picked this from Canada because it's what I'm used to, but like the US, same thing, amazing bulletins. So what's so cool is it really gives, I was saying it earlier, it gives those characteristics, like what you're looking for. So those are those things that you can talk about in the field. But let's just I want to break it down so you guys can understand, like you doing this sort of thing. I visualize you driving up, in your vehicle with your homies before you get into the trailhead. So a couple things that you do is obviously you look at like a telemetry or like weather happened overnight. You take the avalanche forecast, you talk about the recent avalanche activity. This is all in the bulletin, and the snowpack. Colorado probably has a basal fastness, that sort of thing. But, you're going to talk about certain changes. But then, this is the big thing I want to bring to it, then you talk on the 4 weather inputs that affect the avalanche conditions. Let's think about that. So, the best way that this was communicated to me growing up was if there's enough change to knock snow off the trees, there's enough change to knock snow off the mountains. So what are those 4 weather inputs? And this is something we hit on all the time. It's precip, temps, winds, and solar. Those are those inputs that are going to affect the avalanche conditions. So part of your summary in all this is like, this is how you stimulate the conversation every hour when you're ski touring. Is like, okay, has the precip changed? What's the temperature like? Is it going up? Is it going down? Wind, obviously wind breaks the snow grain up and can create a slab. And solar radiation is different than temperature. And so what we do as guides is like we write this down in our little books. You guys ever noticed guides have these like fancy little books? They're not just talking about who they like and they dislike as guides. It's just like part of that managing desires piece. So we have the forecast. We've got things written down which we can't ski, and we'll talk about certain terrain features. And like when we're in the field, this is what I want you guys to do. When you're in the field, bring those 4 weather inputs to the table. And talk through certain terrain features that would have those 4 weather inputs, or if there's any change happening throughout the day. So as you're going up, you're working through the terrain of like, each piece. You're always kind of stopping. Like this would be a great example where you stop. You stop. This is a good place to stop as a group, not down in the trees, because it's like have a little break here, create that atmosphere you can bring up and talk about anything. It's like, okay, well, our objective is to get up here. Let's work our way up to this pass, piece for piece. And it's just like precip, temps, winds, and solar, going back to that. So that, by the time you get up to the top, kind of like back to the 2 incidents that I was saying, you've got really good observations. You've been talking through everything. And then before you drop in, you've got that framework, that systematic approach. You've actually got really good conversations at that point. So I missed that on those 2 incidents. And this is exactly what I do. Writing in the book, those 4 weather inputs. and any changes. And then from there, obviously, we talk about terrain choice and all that sort of stuff. But that's sort of more that like managing the uncertainty with avalanche conditions. And then when it's time to drop in, you're all in.